All right, and we are going.
All right.
How you been, sir?
I've been okay. How you doing, Dan? All right. Everything's good.
Onward and upward. It's a very strange time to be alive, but I'm here.
It is strange. Yes.
I got a roof over my head, and I'm employed, and I have dogs that mainly just bark when I'm either on the phone or doing podcast interviews. Life is good. Life is good.
Who can ask for anything more?
Absolutely. The rest of it is just noise, as far as I'm concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, returning to Sool Radio, I have the great Robert Funaro. You've seen him on The Sopranos. You've seen him on The Irishman. Uh, if you're a nerd like me, you've seen him on vinyl. And he has a brand new cookbook out, Homemade with Robert Funaro. Not only does it have some great recipes, it has some stories from his time on The Sopranos, stories behind 8 of his favorite episodes. All right, let's get started because I think I told you the last time I had you on. There it is. You can find it at Barnes and Noble, and you can find it on Amazon. Those are probably the two easiest places to check it out. It's available right now. Pause, buy the book, and then go back.
I got rhythm.
There you go. There you go. So the last time I had you on, I actually think I told you at the end of the interview, the woman I was with at the time, were doing a Whole 30 diet. And probably our biggest detractor slash temptation was just seeing all the food that you were posting on your Instagram.
Yeah, it's
Uh, this
not the,
was 5 years ago. This was during lockdown. And, we've manifested this in the form of a cookbook. How did we get from A to B?
well. There really wasn't a lot going on after COVID. During COVID, so I began cooking. Hence, you started gaining some weight looking at the food and Andrew Jedlicka, my business manager, said, "Hey, why don't we do a cookbook?" This is a couple of years after COVID, maybe 3 years after COVID. And I said, another cookbook by another actor. You got Stanley Tucci. You have so many actors that have done this, Um, and I said, I wasn't so sure. And then I said, well, I'm really not doing a lot of work. I'm not really working. And there was a strike. And still, it's kind of when you look at things, they were done. I asked people friends that I know, they said, I did that 3 years ago in 22. Stuff like Nona's that just came out on Netflix. So I said, you know what? Maybe I'll take a crack at it, Andrew. And I came up with with the idea to bookend it with taking 8 Soprano episodes and how I got on the Soprano, my friendship with James prior to Sopranos, and coupling it with a recipe and culminating the whole book with my favorite recipe, Mama Funaro's Sunday sauce, with members
Ooh,
only, with my big episode members only, which I finished out my Sopranos run in 2006. And that's how it came about, you know?
wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have seen it evolve in real time. Well, so in terms of cooking and crafting food that not only tastes good but looks good and is art in and of itself, is this something that you were always into while you were on the show? Is it something that happened after? Did you grow up and this was a thing before?
Well, having children, 3, and being a single father, um, on both relationships, everyone's still alive. Um, you learn to cook, and in my case, I always was hanging out in the kitchen watching Mama cook. So I enjoyed it. It's very meditative, and I enjoy eating. So it was a no-brainer that I came up with this. But I must say that when I was taking care of my mom during the COVID crisis, I started beginning cooking and asking for the recipes that she did. And I asked my sister Linda, who does her rice balls, Annie, who does specialty was a broccoli and macaroni pasta that was be able to stretch out for 5 or more family members, but really enjoyed it. It's like a T-bone steak to us, you know what I mean? Pasta. So that's how it kind of came about, Dan.
That's awesome. I love that. So we're kind of in the same boat, as it were. So I'm doing the single dad thing myself. I'm kind of teaching myself to cook, and it still at this point hasn't really gone past like I can make decent air fryer food, which is fine right now because my two kids, they're 10 and 11 respectively, and so it's passable. And I feel like in a year or two it's going to be I'm going to be at a crossroads where I'm going to have to step my game up. What was step one in teaching yourself how to actually cook?
Well, observing, because a lot of Italians, especially my family, they put a little bit of something. How much you put in there? A little dash, a little bit. It's not much, just a couple of garlic cloves. So that was the hardest thing is to get the right proportion, and especially proportions in regard to the cookbook to make it a step by step. I tried to simplify it step by step, of course, numerically in a chronological order, and I think the recipes really are quite simple, they're not really they're not so complicated. I mean, even a penne vodka sauce, which I kind of clipped from Spaghetti Roots, Joanna Mula from Spaghetti Roots. If you saw her on Instagram, she's a tremendous chef, cook, call her what you want. I took her recipe. So, and my sister just looked through the book because I gave her a copy, finally got a copy to her. They said, "Oh, Mom never really did the chicken parm with the vodka sauce." I said, "Well, yeah, sometimes you got to kind of improvise. That's what we actors do at times." And I think the vodka sauce is quite easy to make. And the vodka, Georgie vodka, is not very expensive, by a fifth of that. And they're really approachable. Vodka sauce, believe it or not, is really not difficult to make. It's quite simple, to tell you the truth. And it's very plentiful, and it's very rewarding when you put it on the chicken parm. So these are recipes that really are homemade recipes that I enjoyed growing up with. Dan, and they're simple enough to put together for anyone who doesn't really cook. You just get your hot water on, as they always say. Put the hot water on for the pasta, and begin from there. And that's easy. That's 15 minutes al
Yeah.
dente, and 15 minutes al dente, and of course the sauce itself. They're just steps that just could be taken, especially the broccoli and spaghetti. Simple stuff. You start with garlic and oil. Most sauces will start with garlic, even the dry sauces, or olive, the spaghetti clam sauce. They'll start with garlic and oil, and then you add your vegetables. You blanch them perhaps so you can get them softened, and then you add some chicken bouillon and the pasta water, which is the gold of any good cooking, is that pasta water, and you go from there. You put the cheese on, you're done.
It's crazy how, not crazy, but it's fascinating to me how people who are Italian, people who are so heavily in that culture, how seriously they take that food. Like I remember I used to work at this country club back in my early 20s, and I was, speaking with one of my coworkers who she was around my age, and then we had another coworker there who was a lifer who like came from Sicily and was this tremendous cook. She would cook for the staff occasionally, and being like the early 20 something I was, my friend and I were just discussing back and forth like the best foods to eat when you're like drunk or high. And I made the offhand comment, man, I really wish Olive Garden was open until like 4 a.m. because I feel like they would crush it as a 4 a.m. restaurant because there's really no good place to get Italian food while you're high. Now, shout out to Annette, who's the third woman in this story, the older woman from Sicily. She stopped us and yelled at us both, not because we were like in the middle of these upper middle class events, talking about, being wasted out of our minds. No, that's not what offended her. She got offended because we referred to Olive Garden as Italian food. And I think that was the moment I realized, like, oh no, there's levels to this.
Oh, there's levels. Yeah, there's levels in every form of sport, every chef. There are levels of eateries, sandwich shops, One of my favorites is Chico and Sons in Northfield, New Jersey. We support it, but I'm not just saying that they have a great quality sandwiches. So there are different levels, of course. Yeah, in horse racing, there are grade 1 races, grade 2, grade 3s. But in the long run, these meals might not be grade 1 for certain people, but for us growing up, we still enjoy them, and that's the main thing. It's like a good cigar. You can have a Cuban cigar or maybe a Dominican cigar. You enjoy the Dominican cigar. Why are you going to smoke the Cuban when it's coughing up? So it's that I look at it. I approach it like that, especially when it comes to food. I'm open to anything except for lamb's brains. Scooped out with breadcrumbs on top in the oven. I don't like that, Dan.
I don't blame you. Some things are just a bridge too far. I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny to look back at The Sopranos now and seeing what a pivotal role food played on the show.
Yeah.
And
ziti, which is in the book, baked ziti.
Oh, yeah. A couple of the cooking tricks I actually learned from the show itself. Mainly, the two of them are actually from Ralphie, played brilliantly by Joey Pants. One is letting the pasta cook in the sauce instead of just coating it. I think it's a scene he's like teaching Jackie Jr. how to cook. And then there's the other one, like famously right before he dies, where he tells Tony that you put sour cream in the scrambled eggs and it makes them fluffier.
These are go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just saying, like, even if you watch the show, you get some good tips.
Well, you see, the thing is, for instance, the pasta in the sauce, that's something that's really not really done quite often. I mean, even with the best of chefs. So, but everyone has their personal recipes. I mean, there's a woman that's on the internet says that you don't have to sear your meatballs. You just throw them in raw. And I've never really tried that because I go by my recipe of my mom and just sear them. I turn my gas on the olive oil on a medium flame when I'm preparing the meatballs. So when I get them in the pan, they're seared, and I just they're raw inside, but they're seared on the outside, searing in the flavors. That's something that I enjoy doing. And it's our tradition, but there are people who really think outside the box. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. I can remember when I first started making sauce or gravy, whatever you want to call it. I did the clemenza and a little bit of sugar. I'm like, give a little sugar. Start with the garlic, put a little sugar. I tried the sugar. I think that's a Sicilian ingredient that the Sicilians put in there. I really didn't enjoy it. And also a little bit of wine. You put a little wine. Now, I use wine for a marinara. We use wine for a marinara sauce, but I don't use it for the Sunday sauce. These are two things, but trial and error, I found out that it really wasn't that good. So your sour cream in your eggs and your pasta in the tomato sauce, if you like it, go ahead, but not for me.
You mentioned cigars, which I just saw that your fellow castmate Tony Darrow is selling his own line of cigars at the moment, or like cigarellos, something along those lines, something you smoke. And I've seen you guys out there, you guys being like yourself, Jason Serbone, who played Jackie Jr., and Dan Grimaldi, who has been on this show before and who I've gotten to know a little bit over the years. Great guy.
Yes.
Kind of traveling, meeting the fans, doing these promos. What has your interaction with the fans been like in recent years, now that The Sopranos kind of had a second wave during lockdown and has since become this multi-generational show?
Well, Dan describes it best as the gift of a show that keeps on giving. And it just almost like the Godfather, Twin Peaks, it just grows with people. All Marty Scorsese's films, they grow as time goes on. People really, idolize them, but they really do enjoy them. Even they see even more things. So it's been a great experience to meet the fans and discuss the inside scoop, which I do with the book. I discuss what happened to me on the show when I first got on the show and what I struggled with, and each episode, the funny things that happen in each episode, the behind the scenes is always fun talking about, because there's it's all about illusion, especially the visuality of film and TV. But you really don't know the inside of how people are, and they get to meet us, and we get to give back. And I think James Gandolfini, God rest his soul, and hope to see him up there one day, because he really was an angel in my life. He set the tone of humility and goodness and caring for other actors, and knowing how hard it is to survive in this business. It's a very difficult thing. So
I can imagine.
So I mean, it's in that respect, it's real pleasure to see fans and have young people who now more than before, who just, I'm in a store, hey Eugene, yeah, it's great. It's a nice feeling getting spotted in the crowd. Not better than being in love, Dan, but it's a good feeling.
I mean, I've done the in love thing a couple of times. When it's good, it's good. But I don't know if I'm gonna go there again. At least not anytime. So that's a whole nother story.
Yes,
You
so it goes. So it goes. The song by Billy Joel. So it goes.
you brought up your relationship with James Gandolfini, and I had this question kind of set for toward the end of the interview. But since you brought it up, I think this is a good time. You and I met at Sopranos Con a little over 6 years ago at this point. And while we met, the same woman, I remember she met you too, and she hadn't seen the show yet. And the first thing I decided to show her was members only, followed by the two coma episodes. So that was her. That was her like first experience, and she had since like seen the entire series, and has better context. I just remember when we came up to you, I was like, yeah, no, this is the guy from the beginning of the first episode that I showed you, and she just goes, oh, just remembering the ending of it. But while we were at Sopranos Con, I didn't get the chance to interview you there, but the people I did interview there, I asked them to tell me a story about James Gandolfini that nobody else on this planet can tell. And so, while we have the platform, would you mind doing that now?
No, I don't mind. There's a funny one that I mentioned in the book. There are other. Well, let me. I'll give you a little bit of insight who James was. Prior to Sopranos, 8 years prior to Sopranos, 8 or 9 years, not sure, can't remember all the way back then, but we did A Streetcar Named Desire, which he did on Broadway with Alec Baldwin. He played Mitch. He played Mitch in our production. We toured Europe, Scandinavia.
Was this the same show that Dan was also in that he did with James?
Dan Grimaldi?
Yeah, I know they were in a couple theater shows together.
No. This was Streetcar Named Desire. It was a European tour. Grant Peterson was the producer, and they did Cuckoo's Nest prior to that in Germany, but this one he had set up in Scandinavia. So it was Sweden, the great theaters in Sweden, and Finland, not so great theaters, and Norway, again, not so great theaters. So, but Sweden was really cosmopolitan, very more theater oriented than the other two. Anyway, this story is about, we were on a little bit R&R. We had a couple of days off. So we decided to take a ferry across a tributary or something to Elsinore Castle in Denmark. But prior to heading out to Finland, I believe, or could have been Norway. So we decided to visit the birthplace of Hamlet, Shakespeare's Hamlet, where he took place, Elsinore. Wow. And there's an actual castle there that they say that Shakespeare based his story on the prince of Denmark. So we went on the tour, and we were seeing all the royalty, and they took us down below the castle into a dungeon area. And me and James were walking through, and we came to a place where they said that prisoners were tortured. It was shaped like a prism, like a triangle. And the torture was this, Daniel. Every week, they would take a board and close you in, close
Oh
you
God.
in, and close you in, and close you in each week until you're in the corner. And they had the boards, the triangular boards, and they locked into the concrete or the stone. It's pretty amazing. So we read the description, and we were there. We were kind of amazed by it. And James looks at me and he says, "Let's go all the way in to that last point, that last place where the prisoner lost it, or that was it." And I said, "James, are you crazy? We're going to get in trouble. First of all, there's a rope here. It says don't go through don't trespass, and like any museum, tell you to stay away. It's fragile, it's whatever it is." He says, "Come on, Bobby." He jumps over the thing. He says, "Come on," and he takes me all the way into that little corner, and we experienced that corner together. And from then on, I knew James was a special human being because not only did he observe, but he needed to have the experience. And this is what made him such a great actor. I'm not saying he killed people, but in his life, he had interactions such as Tony Soprano and things with his family that he was able to. He went to places, let's just say places that people just say, "Oh, I get an idea of it," but they don't experience it. What I'm saying, Daniel, and that's a story that to me represents uh, greatness in actors and greatness in anyone who takes on any equation or any surgeon who thinks outside the box in order to uh, further themselves in their profession. Sometimes maybe James didn't think about it like, "Oh, this is going to make me a better actor," but it just made him a better actor indirectly.
He was able to channel those emotions into something that, I mean, not only made him very successful, but it probably also helped with him in his personal life. Just
He did.
it's
He went.
it's a way of processing emotions.
Yeah, well, you dare go where no one, everyone. I mean, who really wants to fight in a war? You know what I mean? So, who wants to go to war? Who wants to shed blood? The American Revolution. Who wants to walk 5 miles without shoes on? Well, that's James. He's going to walk 5 miles without shoes on to get that experience as an actor because he's playing that role of the soldier. Do you know what I mean? So, he I think Sam Shepard says it best. There's one of his plays called Action, and it's called Action for a reason. He talks about tells a story about three moths. The king moth sends out one moth to go see what that light's about. The moth goes to the light and he comes back and says, "Well, it's really, really bright. That's all I can tell you." And the king moth says, "It's not good enough." So he sends out the other moth, and they watch that moth go towards that light, and all of a sudden that moth embraces that light and he burns up in that light. And the king moth says to the other moth, "Wow, he knows something that we don't know."
Mhm.
Got me? So there you go. That's it.
There you go. I mean, that's, yeah, even with like the concept of death and religion and what's out there, like nobody knows until they get there. And when you get there, you can't tell anybody.
Well, that's what faith's about. If we're created in God's image, as it said in the Word, then it's our faith that pulls us through. Who's to say?
Awesome.
I'm a believer, so I mean that's my feeling. But
There
that's
you
what
go.
faith is about. So
I love that. I love that. I'm not a religious person myself, but I've always kind of admired and low key envied people who have that in their lives because it's like it's got to be nice to have something to lean on, especially during darker moments.
well, the thing
I'm
is,
just
Danny, it's the life has so many facets. Do you know what I mean? But the soul and the spirit, let's face it, it definitely, we get old, our bodies age, but our souls remain young, right?
Yeah. I'm pushing 40. You don't have to tell me.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's all good. It's all good. Um, so a lot has been said about the ending of The Sopranos. It's been debated ad nauseum for nearly 2 decades at this point. I'm not here to ask you about the ending. I am here to ask you, though, um, just given the implementation of the members only guy in that final scene, there's a man in a members only jacket, and he's very often linked spiritually by a lot of people to your character, Eugene.
Yeah. Well,
Uh, I was curious as to, were you like, how did you find out? Like, did you find out when it was aired? Did somebody on staff give you a heads up? Because I know you were gone from the show for about a year at that point.
no, there wasn't any heads up. It was a very clandestine. The scripts are very written clandestinely, and they're very secretive, not to allow anyone, any of the public, to know what was going to happen, even in members only. My script had me as at the ending on the rope, and of course the real members only, Tony Soprano, is shot.
Yeah.
So we didn't even know that. So
Wow.
this is something that the ending is controversial. My feeling, and I've said this in many of the interviews, is that I do believe that Peter Bogdanovich, God rest Peter Bogdanovich's soul, also a great director, and Elliot was a great character.
Oh, so good.
Elliot was so great.
That big
He
ass
had
water
said,
bottle.
it's just symbolic. It's an ending that's symbolic of America. The members only is that threat that no matter who you are, any wise guy, is a threat. You can make it up that he comes out of that bathroom, he blows Tony away. We don't know. We'll never know. The Boy Scouts who were in the scene, the rappers, it was a cross section of America. That's the way Peter described it. But it more or less was saying that it's always going to be around, which it has been. It's even around now, maybe a little bit more secretively. It's more secretive, not as out in the open since John Gotti, but it's still there. So, and the wise guys are going to have to contend either with jail or being killed. In Italy, it's still going around. There's guys getting hit all the time, getting clipped all the time out there, and they're very strict with La Cosa Nostra out there. I think they would just say that I read something maybe 3 or 4 months ago, maybe during the winter, that they arrested maybe 15 Black Hand members all at the same time in Italy. So I think that all in all, it was just what you make up, how you visualize it, But I also, with the disclaimer, say that who really wants to see Tony blown up in front of his children, bludgeoned?
Yeah.
No one wanted to see that, So the Holstons, the onion rings, it's America, and I think that's the way Bogdanovich was describing it. And to me, it's a very exciting. Of course, Don't Stop Believing was so poignant for such a show that was so iconic.
It absolutely is. And yeah, Ray Abruzzo, who played Little Carmine, he actually said a very similar thing on this very show, just that the diner was an encumbrance of just American culture at the time, and Tony just happened to be a part of it.
Yeah. Ray stole that from me.
Oh, did he? Okay.
I'm
Damn
only
it,
kidding.
Ray.
No. Ray, stop stealing my stuff.
He's the one guy I can send Sopranos memes to, and he actually enjoys it.
Yeah.
What up, Ray Abruzzo? Come back on the show.
Ray's a great guy. I love him. And LA.
Oh, he's good people. He's good people.
Very good.
He's
good
doing theater stuff too again.
Yeah, we're all. I mean, Henry Bernthal, he's doing. Would you believe Dog Day Afternoon? They're making that a play.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I saw Michael Gandolfini posted that yesterday. I think it's going to open in the fall sometime. Well, good luck. It's interesting how certain plays, even the producers, they rather take chances on things that are kind of successful. But Dog Day Afternoon as a play, I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe it's good. Bernthal's a very good actor. Of course, Many Saints of Newark, he was in.
Yeah.
Um, so, I mean, he's a good actor, but we'll have to see, you know.
What did what did you think of the Many Saints of Newark? Because, I mean, number one, it very heavily features Michael Gandolfini, James's son, and in real life playing a young Tony Soprano. Do you remember like Michael being on the set or around James back then, being really young? What was and if you did, what was it like seeing him embody Tony all those years later? Just speaking of the passage of time and getting older.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a great thing to do. And Michael is a terrific actor.
Oh,
He's not his
great.
father, but Michael is Michael. I think that um, the Many Saints. Of course, I always wanted, for me, in that film, Alan Taylor directed it, David wrote it. It's a very good film, but it comes off to me more of like a TV kind of, you want to see more. So
Yeah,
I thought that it should have focused a little bit more, much more, just on Henry and Michael, which it tried to do instead of the uncle um, Michael's,
oh, Dickie.
yeah, Dickie. I thought that the focus should have been more on what was the matrix that, and seeing Tony's dad, uh, you know, that should have been more
Yeah,
focus on that as opposed to the uncle, Christopher's father. Do you know what I mean? Who got him into it? I thought that somehow that Bernthal's character was pivotal in that story to see where Tony was given that. I always think about the genetic. We're given. I look at my mother. I see my mother in myself and my mother, and sometimes myself and my dad, and I think that's passed on through generations. Even the spiritual thing, the genetic spirituality of people, that's passed on also. So I just thought that was my take on it. Daniel.
oh, for sure. And I agree with you completely. Actually, I like the Many Saints in New York. I thought it did a lot of things right, but my biggest issue was it was like, yeah, I thought I know like David didn't want to go back to TV. That was his whole thing. But it like we could have done like an 8-part miniseries on HBO and people would have eaten that shit up and it would have given us more time to explore the characters because for all the issues that film had, like man, the amount of talent and who they were cast as was just like down to the number brilliant. I thought Vera Farmiga was amazing as young Livia, and my issue was I wanted to see more of that. I thought Michael was great as young Tony, and I wanted to see more. I think casting Joey Diaz as Big Pussy's father, what kind of like answering to the memes that he and Vinny Pastore are kind of the same person was fucking brilliant. And he's in like 3 scenes. And it would have, and I don't even think like Les Dickey would have been the answer. I think there just would have been more time to have like all of it.
You're absolutely right because in a film, it's as the book is. It's like it's bookended in films. You have to tell the story, and you have to whichever way you go at the end, whichever dramatic structure you use, whether it be the precipitating event ending in some sort of tragic event or some happy event at the end, some sort of resistance. It needs to be contained. If you look at the Shawshank Redemption, what you have is Andy Dufresne, who was wrongly accused of a
Yeah.
murder of his wife, and he's thrown in jail. And from then on, we see his struggle, and the struggle culminating with his escape and meeting those people, those signposts along the way, Morgan Freeman and his hope and his determination to escape. So it's all in one unit. So with Many Saints, it went in different directions. So they had to. I think that the thing was, it's not so easy. It's easy for me to say, is to choose that sort of same frame, so to say, that Greek frame of structure and to take it from there. Not so easy, converting. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it's not going to work. They're like Godfather 3 really wasn't a tremendous success, although Francis, wrote a different film, and the Duval part, um, Duval's part, yeah, you know, he just turned down the film because they wouldn't pay him enough, and that's what changed the film. So there are all different factors.
Yeah, yeah, and I remember reading some speculation online that the decision to turn the many saints into a film as opposed to like a full-on TV series, which would have had a much greater budget, would have just been what a limited reach David's film Not Fade Away had, which also like I thought was very strongly done and I thought should have been a limited series.
Fade Away also, how he became, and John McGarvey, who was in September 5th, I think it was. He was great in that. He's a great actor.
Yeah.
Again, was an interesting story of how he became, how David kind of liberated himself so much from the Italian family and how he became who he became, the writer that he became. So it was interesting too, but it's hard. It's just film it's different mediums. Let's face it. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you can't have Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan tried to play
Baseball.
Baseball. He did a little golf, but I think baseball, but it didn't really work, right? So if we look at it that way, that it's just not for everyone, right? I mean, we all can't do them. I mean, I love to do theater. I mean, I like to end out my career in a theater company, just working on plays. It's wonderful to work on plays, to work with people, to have that socialization as opposed to, waiting for the next job to come around. But that's the business. I mean, that's the life we've chosen to be an actor, So.
Yeah, and not every project is going to be perfect. Like nobody
No,
is a perfect project.
no, you don't know.
Michael
I don't
Caine
think.
has to answer to questions about Austin Powers 3 for the rest of his life. People can do worse shit. But yeah, like I completely lost the point I was trying to make.
I lose it all the time. Don't worry about it.
It's all good. Have you seen the Apple TV Plus show The Studio, by the way?
I haven't seen the studio. Is that about the actor studio?
It's the one with Seth Rogen and Catherine O'Hara, and they're playing studio executives. I was only asking because the first episode features Martin Scorsese playing himself,
I gotta
and the
check it out.
whole
Now you gave me something to check out. Now I can't wait to see it.
it features him playing himself, and he the whole plot is like Marty's trying to make a film about the Jonestown massacre, and he
Right.
reluctantly kind of agrees to blend his script into what the studio's doing because the
Right.
Barbie movie was so successful. They're making now making one about Kool-Aid, and so because the cult members and the phrase "drink the Kool-Aid" was the thing. He's like, you know what? I can make this work. We can change the title. And at the end of the episode, like the studio just
Uh-huh.
buys the script and then just kills it because they know he's like going to be difficult about it.
Ah,
And my question was going to be like, how real was that? But I guess you haven't seen the show. But now I've given you a recommendation.
yes, for sure. The studio. Check it out. You're saying how real that?
Well,
How
because you
real?
worked with him on The Irishman and you worked with him on Vinyl, and I just what was working with him like somebody who's very much known for artistic integrity and sticking to his vision comparatively to working with other directors who have been more willing to go with the flow.
Okay. Here's a little hint. Okay, I'll give you a little story, and that'll kind of put it in We'll give you a little meal in a pill. Okay. Vinyl, which he directed the first couple of episodes, which I was in. I played Tony Tony Del Greco.
Hmm.
Um, I thought it was really a great show. Bobby Cannavale, the whole music business.
It's
Mick Jagger's son was in it.
oh yeah, oh yeah, they with a woman like you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, so I thought it was really good, good actors, and I like music, and I like the background. I think they used Stevie Van Zandt as a consultant too, and that was
Okay.
cool that they used him as a consultant. And I think that he would have definitely had a part down the line in it. Um, well, maybe not. I'm not sure if he was a consultant in that. But anyway, to make a long story short, it wound up on the cutting room floor after the first season. A lot of people were disappointed, and including myself, Bobby Cannavale,
Yeah.
and Armin Garrow, who played Galasso, great actor. Um, we were really disappointed because we thought it was pretty, and it got good reviews. The Times
Hmm.
gave it a good review. I mean, and then HBO said that it was too costly, which I thought was okay. I don't really get that costly thing. Something's not
I
right here. Now
I
I
wouldn't be
heard, I heard,
surprised if the
I heard,
costume design
I heard,
and
I heard the rumor was that Mick, he didn't particularly like that it was leaning more towards the wise guy thing, as
mm,
opposed to the music thing. That could have been something there. I don't know. Don't quote me. But anyway, it ended. And
yeah,
The Irishman was in the works. Okay. The Irishman, Steve Zalian was writing away there. And if you notice, The Irishman did not go to HBO. The Irishman went to Netflix,
Netflix.
right?
Hmm.
With Marty, it's loyalty, it's family, and it's loyalty. And I think there's some truth in in that. I know even for myself, people who remain loyal to me, I remain loyal to them. And I find that if I mean, I would feel that if I'm Martin Scorsese. I mean, you're talking about Martin Scorsese, a brilliant master like Leonardo da Vinci, and you're saying that's not going to go. You're canning that. I mean, to me, it's like, wow. I wouldn't have. I wouldn't do it. That's all I'll say.
Yeah,
I don't care what executive I might be. I would say, no, you can't do that. You got to go through this
understandable.
because down the line, we're going to have more stuff with Mr. Scorsese, the director Scorsese, or whatever. And, I mean, to me, it's not. The thing is, the show didn't tank. So you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I get where it would have been expensive between the costume designs, and I know they were paying like modern artists to do covers of these songs from the 70s. Like Amy Mann did one for the Carpenters yesterday once more, and there was one for like Suffrage. Remember with each week's episode, there was an EP being released of modern covers of 70 songs
Yeah, I guess
to
that
go
could
with
have
the
been it. So maybe
episode.
maybe the royalties. You could be right on that, Daniel. Maybe the royalties was one of the things also that was because it being such a successful, that the royalties maybe were very out of contention. That could be that's a good point. That could be more of a more valid point than my particular feeling about the wise guy thing. So that could be true because I know people have trouble with the royalties. Some people just don't won't give it to them, and they want a lot of money for them too.
Oh
Over a
yeah,
late
you guys licensed the Beatles for an episode. No one gets to do that.
Yeah. Hello.
Oh, I really like that show, and I thought it had a lot of potential. And I think its first and sadly only season, like most first seasons of great shows, kind of struggled within the first few episodes to strike the tone that it wanted to strike for the rest of the series. And yeah, I think it's a shame that it wasn't given a second season because I thought it would have been great. Like even The Sopranos, that first handful of episodes like plays like a comedy.
Yeah. Well,
And there's
Alan Freed.
dialogue and music cues in there that it never would have thought to do later on.
Yeah. I mean, Alan Freed, who was the kind of distrustful music producer, I mean, Tommy James, if you read Tommy James' book about how he kind of got screwed by producers, especially with Freed, he really wrote all these songs. He has, Tommy James has such a great songbook, but he really wasn't making a lot of royalties. And finally, it's in his book, so it's not a secret. There was no records. Everything was ripped up, which is most times it gets incinerated or it's shredded. I think someone came up. He came up with the idea. Someone came up with the idea to go to the people, the printers, who print the record labels for the prints for the actual vinyl, and they were able to produce the labels, the number of labels. I don't know what the amount was, but they took that to court, and they were able to. Tommy was able to get his royalties from that particular venture with Freed. I thought this is a great story. Could have been embroidered in there too. So yeah, music is a tremendous business. But back then, a lot of artists, even Al Martino, who was bigger than Sinatra at one time, before Sinatra came on board, even he, and it ties into Irishman, Buffalino, George Buffalino. Buffalino was tied into Martino because Martino had a contract with some wise guys, and they wouldn't release him from the contract, and he wound up getting beat up. But he had to move to England, and he produced music in England for a little while. He came back to America and asked Buffalino in Philadelphia, and he explained the story, and he actually went up to one of the guys. He had a meeting with one of the guys that beat him up, and he taped it. He taped this meeting. He was able to put a cassette tape recorder, and he took that to Buffalino, and he said, "This is what they did to me." And Buffalino went, as all great Carlo Gambino, gave him the okay, just like that. And he was able to begin his career again. So these are really fascinating stories that are tied into early music, at least. But let's face it, everyone's trying to. Parasites are everywhere.
Oh yeah, it went so much further into the future and in modern day. Like I remember that was why Prince changed his name into that symbol for several years. It was over contractual shit.
Is that so? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just when you mix art with commerce too much, it becomes gross and disingenuous, and it's a necessary evil, and I get it is what it is. But yeah, it's oof.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the one thing I must say about Sopranos and David Chase, and they're really pretty cool with us in terms of supporting ourselves and promoting HBO, and I think it just makes the show even greater. They don't get us and say, "You mentioned this in this book and you didn't get our permission." They leave us alone, and that's a great thing they've done. Of course, one has to remember that, and I'm not ungrateful at all, but I mean, HBO really was the first, I guess, public television venue that really cut the rates so much. The cable TV cut the residual rates of actors. So it cut the rates of actors, but then it did propel us into there's a catch-22 there. It's ironic, yet we don't really make a lot of money we did make some money off the documentary because they used certain clips of us. David Chase's documentary, brilliant documentary, but there is a sense of, we don't really get the network residual. And the residuals are important, Daniel, as you know, to keep us going, and artists keep going. They're like endowments to keep us going and to keep us on track.
That was such a big part of why the strikes occurred a couple years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. That's one day, hopefully capitalism collapses and we're forced to do a hard reset. That's wishful thinking, but I'm going to put it in the universe now.
Yeah, I mean, great things come out of necessity and resistance. Even our present administration, although people complain about it, I'm sure there'll be some great art at the expense of blood shed by others. Most times it's about that. that great art is formed in that way through the pressure, almost like what happens to a diamond, how it's
Oh, yeah.
carbonized. So, I mean, that's just the way life is, Daniel. We can't get around it.
Yeah, great art so often comes from strife and the response to it. I was just talking with somebody about so like my high school career, like I started high school in 2001. My
Yes.
second week of high school, 9/11 happened, and it was like right after Bush got elected. My second year, the Iraq war started, and there is no more pivotal like time capsule of a piece of art for people around my age than American Idiot by Green Day, which was like the protest album at the time. And now this is what makes me feel old as fuck, seeing like the 20-year retrospectives on it. And I'm just sitting here like, no, this came out like a year ago. What are you talking about? Uh, Well, Robert, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out to be here. I always appreciate your time. I've always appreciated our little like Instagram back and forths from over the years.
Yes,
You're an
absolutely.
incredible artist. I'm proud to say I know you. Is there anything you want to promote aside from the book? I mean, you promote the book, but is there anything else you want to plug before we go?
Okay, I do have a film on Amazon called Critical Acclaim, the movie. It's $2.99,
There you go.
but it's a good film. I done it after in 2022. Just got off of COVID. A good portion of myself. Some performances you really never can repeat. I think it's a performance. I don't have control of the film just as an actor, but I think the performance that I gave in it was I shared a part of myself that I think it's worth watching. So you can see that on Amazon and anytime. And of course, the book I'm doing at Massapequa in Long Island, June 14th from 1 to 3 at the Barnes and Noble. And they'll be
Nice.
signing Homemade by Robert Funaro, myself, Andrew Jedlicka, and James McCusker. Got to mention those guys because they helped put it together. And
Shout out to them.
of course, everything else that I've done. Follow my Instagram page. You'll find out the readings and the films that I'm going to be in, future films. And I try to post that stuff to keep busy. And that's about it.
I'm gonna have to bum rush you guys at an event one day. I
Yeah,
tried
sure.
to get out there a couple years ago for that party at Tony's house, like the
Yes.
actual Soprano house.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, man, it, it's awesome to see you guys like still hanging out and still like one of the most surreal, maybe the most surreal night of my life was just that uh, opening dinner at Sopranos Con and seeing people like Dominic Chianese, who like that man in his 90s, and he was like walking around and shooting the shit with people and like flirting with the female reporters. Like God bless him. It's it's so cool seeing you guys out there.
Thank you.
I grew up on your show. I watched it for the first time when I was like way too young. It is so much. It's influenced so much of like my artistic sensibilities and some of the output I did. I went to film school. I want when like everybody else wanted to be Quentin Tarantino. I wanted to be like a cross between David Chase and Kevin Smith. Well, maybe one day. But
Keep
long
going, baby.
long story long. Thank you for being here, and I
Thank you,
appreciate
James.
everything you've
Pleasure.
done.
Pleasure to be on Soul Radio.
Sool Radio, like cool. It's a long story. It's an acronym that a friend of mine
Yeah,
and I came up with like over 20 years ago.
the pleasure. Let's keep talking. All right.
All right,
Thank you.
absolutely. This won't be the last time.
All
Robert
right, buddy.
Funaro, Dan
Take care.
Carlin, Sool Radio, Homemade, HBO. Let's go.
There you go.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was
You're
that was
welcome,
fun.
brother.